I don't have much of a fun preamble because today is going to be just diving in and looking at the nitty-gritty details of QueryTracker Premium. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm MK Williams. I'm an author and I love sharing my insights about all things books and publishing with you. Before I get into the details of today's topic, don't forget to hit subscribe. You'll be notified each week as I put out videos about publishing, making a career to being an author, and now being a mompreneur. And today I'm just going to cut the preamble and we're going to dive right into QueryTracker Premium. So this is the version of QueryTracker I've been using on my querying process, and I'm going to show you some of the really interesting features that I've been using to help me through the process. And I don't have any big updates as of right now, but if I do, I'll kind of put them in at the end of the video just so y'all are up to date on what's going on. All right. Hello. As promised, we are diving into the QueryTracker tutorial. It's more of a tour of the platform and some of the features that I'm finding the most helpful. I'm sure some of you will look at this and say, oh, what about this feature? Maybe because I'm not using it. And I will let you know, I had already recorded this tutorial and I was annoyed by myself trying to go in and edit it. So I am re-recording this for you. I do want to give a bit of a disclaimer. So I am going to be redacting some information. First is the title of my project, just because it may end up changing if I do sign with an agent and a publishing house if they think it should be changed. So I will be doing my best to not show you the title of the project. And the second is agent information. So I'm going to do my best to show you all the things you can see about an agent without necessarily disclosing a specific agent's name or agency. That's just for privacy reasons. I don't want anybody to think like, oh, I'm showing the data that this agent responds on average 2 days slower than this agent, and they get upset or you think I'm bad-mouthing them. Like, that's just the time that you respond, and like that's data, like that's a fact. And I don't think there's anything good or bad about it. I think some agents respond slower because they're focusing on their clients, which is a good thing. I think some agents respond quicker, maybe because they're building their client list, and that's also a good thing. So the data is the data. It's open for interpretation, but I still don't want to be seen as putting somebody's information out there and then saying, well, they respond slowly. If they respond that way, that's what they do. And I also pay for the premium version of QueryTracker. It's $25 for the year. And I don't want it to be seen as, oh, MK is just giving away information on this agent that you wouldn't be able to see unless you pay for it, that other people think, oh, well, this is behind a paywall. For starters, that information is kind of outdated every day just because new information is coming into the system. But I still don't want it to be seen as I'm giving away information. So I'm going to do my best to redact information. And I hope that doesn't take away from the experience of the tutorial. So with all of that said, we're going to dive in right now. This is the homepage for QueryTracker. As you can see up top here, I have this little yellow star. That means I have the premium account. Now you can access QueryTracker for free. And I was considering doing that. But then once I saw what I could see with premium, I definitely thought it was worth it. So everything you can see on my screen today is going to be available on the premium level. But again, I think it is a very reasonable cost for the 1-year subscription. Highly recommend it. And I don't even have an affiliate. They're not paying me to say that. I wish they would, but this is just my genuine recommendation to you. Okay, all of that said, this is the homepage, querytracker.net. Now, you'll hear a lot of people talking about QueryTracker or Query Manager. So the QueryTracker is the author-facing side. So I am tracking my queries as the author. Query Manager is for the literary agent to use. So they manage the queries that are coming into their inbox. So I'll show you how you can see which agents use Query Manager. I actually like to query those agents first because I know I can see everything that's up to date. Versus ones where maybe they ask for email submissions or even their own personal website form. If somebody's not using QueryTracker, they're not logging the information. And so it's like, oh, they only got like a couple queries this week. They should be getting back to mine quickly. It's like, oh, well, only a couple were logged. So I'll go into all of that as you see it. So the first thing from the homepage is just the homepage. There's nothing special. The real good stuff is when you get into the dashboard and then into the agent. So I'm going to show you my dashboard. Okay, so the really nice thing from here is that I can see my outstanding queries. There's 18 that haven't been responded to right now. I have 2 submissions that are being reviewed right now as a bit of an update from even when I recorded the introduction to this video. So 2 agents currently are looking at my full manuscript, and hopefully they both say it's awesome, but hopefully at least one of them comes back and says, yes, let's work together. What's really nice, if you like data, I like data, I can see the total query sent, negative reply rate, positive reply rate, and obviously that number does not add up to the query sent. That's just because this is people who've actually replied. There are some people who I'm still waiting to hear back from. So that's part of it. Now from here, I can search for agents. I can go to my query list, which I will show you in a moment, or I can see my query timeline. This is just a different way to look at the data. So this shows you, these little sad faces are people who actually wrote back and said pass, sad face. These little pink phases are closed with no response. So this is where an agent says, hey, if you don't hear from me within 4 to 6 weeks, consider it a pass. So I went in on day 42 and I marked closed, no response. Now that's for me, for my tracking. This agent could still come back at a later date and say, hey, I finally got to your query. I loved it. I want to see more. That would be awesome. And I would update it at that time. And one of the things you'll notice is there's this cloud. Ooh, lightning bolt. That's a bit different. So the clouds are QueryTracker, Query Manager queries that I submitted. So these are agents that used Query Manager. And the lightning bolts are email submissions. And then this little happy face here, that was the first agent who says, oh, I really like what I'm reading. Please send me through the full. I attached the full, and then a couple days later they said, no, that was that. But this is just a kind of a quick introduction to how they have this nice little symbology or symbols to very quickly see what's going on. Now, I don't actually look at this method of the data that often. But it is one thing you could do. I could even sort it by, I only want to see my Query Manager queries that are out there. Oh, look, that was the second person who asked for my full. But you can see a few are still outstanding. I could say, okay, I want to see all of them, but I only want to see the ones sent in the past 30 days. So obviously a much smaller rate. If there's any replies, okay, I only want to see the people who've requested for me because that makes me feel good. Oh, look. All smiley faces, except for that one sad face. So I can really cut the data any way, and that's very helpful. So yeah, if you're a data nerd, you're going to love QueryTracker. All right, I'm going to go back to the dashboard page that I was on. Now, I have this extra feature down here because there's the star underneath here, compare to average member. So I can click on this, and I can just see a data cut. How's my book comparing to others? So I can see the total number of queries that I've sent. I'm still under average. That's good. It makes me feel like, okay, if I did send out a few more, that wouldn't be the worst. Now this is from I've just sent out my second round of queries. So I had some of the early rounds. I worked with a coach, which you guys saw that video a couple weeks ago. And now I've sent out another round. I have a lower negative reply rate, but I'm sure as some of these queries come back or they pass that 42-day window, it'll be going up. And I currently have a good positive reply rate, but again, several of those full requests may come back as a pass. I really hope that they don't, but they might. So that's kind of what you can see from the dashboard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going back to this main dashboard page. Now here I could click search for agents or my query list. So a lot of you, if you're just starting out, you want to search for agents. Now, I'm fairly sure this is also going to take me to my query list. They're both, you search from the query list. So I'm actually curious to see what that does. Yes, this took me to my query list. So actually, look at this page, hit my query list. It's the same. So there used to be, there was a very recent update that was rolled out within QueryTracker where I would just have my own list and then I could search separately. Now it's actually all on one page. So I can search from here, but I have items picked, right? I have my current query list is shown. I'm hiding closed agents and I want to see all my queries except for rejections. So what I could do is I could say, okay, just show all. Take that off and full agent list. And now I've removed all of the filters. As I did that, you likely noticed this number here at the bottom went up. So as I was taking things off, so okay, now 50 out of 1,741, I can count. If I just do my query list, okay, there's only 79 agents on list. Oh, I want to hide the closed agents. Okay, that's taking it down anymore. And I just want to see everybody except for the rejects. Okay, well, that's further reducing that. Ouch. So that is a way that you can cut the data. So if you are searching now, let's go back to where we have all the filters off. I'm going to scroll down just so you can see what you see on this page. The top half of the screen is always going to be your search filters. The bottom half is going to be the information about the agent. Now, if you have the free version or premium, everybody can see this, right? You can see the status of the query. You can see if you've already queried within that agency. You can see the agent's name. their agency. You can see the country that they're in. Now, I don't have a problem working with an agent outside of the United States. I'd be open to that. But it is helpful to know, maybe if I query somebody who's in the UK, I might say, okay, well, I might expect to hear from them a bit earlier in the day, or, if it's after 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the US, it's getting kind of late over there. I'm probably not going to hear from them. Or if it's somebody in Canada, like, okay, well, what time zone are they on? I think the only thing that would really impact me is, again, assuming a positive outcome. We work together, we get a great deal for the book, is will there be any foreign transaction fees with royalty payments or the advance payment and things like that. But otherwise, I'm totally open to working with international agents. So if you're listening, hey, let's hang out. Query method. So this is what I was referring to earlier with these little icons. So this cloud means that this agent accepts queries through Query Manager, QueryTracker. This form, which is not highlighted here, would be if they have their own form on their own website. So similar to Query Manager in that you're filling out a form, but it's on their own website. And most likely of the agents that I've queried that have online forms, you usually also get a confirmation email saying, hey, query was received, which is also nice with Query Manager links, is you get, hey, query was received. The lightning bolt is email queries, which sometimes you get a bounce back email saying this has been received. Sometimes you're supposed to get that email and you don't get it. Sometimes you don't get anything. And then this envelope is for snail mail, which a few agents still have that on there, that they accept mailed in submissions, which that's what you want to do. If you want to keep the postal service in business, that's great. So you can see all of that there. This is comments. So you can see these are all blank, but then further down here, there's this bright yellow comment. That means there's a new comment about that agent. Now, usually what the comments are is somebody posts and says, hey, this was the day I queried. This was the day I got a rejection letter, or hey, I got a really nice, thoughtful pass. It was actually really helpful. Or hey, I sent the email submission, but it says I was supposed to get a bounce back. I didn't get one. Has anybody else had that? So it's a place where authors can just kind of mark that information. Last activity. So this is the last activity that I have had on this agent's profile, whether it was the date that I queried them, whether it was the date I added them to my query list. There are some agents on here who I obviously have no data for, because there are 1,700 agents and I have only queried a handful. The age of the query. So again, if I hadn't queried, this would just be blank, but this shows how long the query is. And now some people you see, MK, that's over the 42-day rule. Are you having trouble letting go? Some of them have on their website stated that they would be longer, and I'll show you an example of that in a second. So I'm waiting patiently for those days to pass. Hopefully I know for a fact this agent here, whose name you can't see, she is actively working through, and I can see I've been skipped, and she just answered the one before me a couple of days ago. So I'm hoping she'll respond, hopefully positively soon. Tags, I don't make use of the tags. I probably could. Priority, this is interesting here. So I could say I hadn't already queried this agent, but I was like, okay, I've read their information, their wish list, and like what they're asking for is what I've got. So I could set this priority to a number 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down, to say, yeah, this is my number 1 priority. I want to work with this person. These are notes for the agency. So the agency notes are really interesting in that there are a few agencies that say, hey, a pass from one of us is a pass from all of us. So I can make a note and say, and put that here and say, before you send the query, double, triple check that like this is the one agent with this agency that you really want to query, because otherwise you can't. So seeing this little check here, if this was the case with this person's agency, I could say, yeah, if she says no, that's it for the whole agency. And then I would make a note for other agents on my list to say, I can't query this person anymore. Somebody else from the agency said no, and I would just remove them from my query list. Okay, these are other items you can do. So this is where you can make a note. So as you can see, this little note page down here is in green. That's where I made a note that they have a 60-day close no reply. So that means, or CNR. So their website specifically said, if you don't hear back from us within 2 months, assume it's a pass. So I hit that 6-week mark, and I was going to mark it as a pass, but I was like, oh, I have 2 more weeks. Maybe they'll actually read it. Then we have the bell icon. You can get notifications for a specific agent, or you can set reminders. So that's an extra way that you can look at this. Okay, this hamburger here is your data explorer. And this down here is your query timeline. So similar to what we saw earlier with my specific queries and the smiley faces and the sad faces and things like that, you can see that on the agent side for who they've responded to and what responses they were giving in that visual style. And then the data explorer is the responses and the queries more written out. So I'm going to show you that in a moment, but just know those are quick links to get there for each agent. So that's super helpful. So at this time, you're seeing agents that I have queried. They were on my list at one time or another. So what I want to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you what it looks like when you see just open agents and how to search, how you would add an agent to your query list. Okay, so I'm back up to the top. So full agent list. So let's say I want to search for agents. I could just search for a name. Maybe I have a friend who's an author, or I am reading a book. I really like the book. I think it would be comparable to what I've written, and I want to find out, oh, John Doe is this person's agent, so I'm going to search for John Doe here by name and look them up, or maybe I don't know which agents I want to look for. So you can search by specific name or agency. I could just do John Doe. Oh, there is no John Doe. Oh, sad. But you can just see the whole name. All these names show up. Or I can search by genre. So in this case, you could just say, okay, fiction or nonfiction. In this case, my book that I'm querying is women's fiction. Boom. And I could search that way. And oh, there's 484 agents found. Now, the one nice thing is you can do an advanced search. So I like to do the advanced search because I pay extra for it. So again, you can search by country. I'm open to all countries, so I'm not going to limit that. Lists, list, archive queries, do not query list. I don't really mind changing my list view right now. Query method. So this is where I could say, you know, I only want to see agents that use Query Manager because I like knowing, or an online form, because I like knowing for sure that they got my query. Whereas sometimes with an email, I don't know. Did it go through? Did it go to spam? I don't know until I hear back with a rejection, or I just don't hear anything. So I, maybe in this case, I only want to look for people with those query methods. Tags, I don't have any tags set up. Notes, okay, I don't have any notes. Reminders, I don't need to use reminders. Priority, again, I'm searching for agents I haven't found yet, so there's no priority that I've assigned to them. Watching, same thing. Comments. Okay, so this is interesting where I can search for agents with profile updates or new comments since the last time I've seen them. So that just tells me like there's something new going on. They've updated their genre. People are hearing back from them. So kind of knowing that they're more fresh in the system. They haven't taken a hiatus from being open to queries. Gender, I would be open to working with any agent, but maybe some people feel, hey, like I'd feel more comfortable pitching my very spicy romance to somebody who's the same gender as me or opposite gender, whatever your preference, you can put that here. And then looking specifically for agents that are members of their certifying body, or agents on Twitter. Now, for me, I think it's a plus if an agent is a member. If they're not, it's not necessarily a red flag for me to not work with them. But if an agent is a member, it tells me like, oh, like, okay, like they've really taken that extra step. So it gives me extra confidence in querying them or working with them, but not having it isn't a complete strike against, in my opinion. And then agents on Twitter. There are a lot of agents who are on Twitter. There's some agents I've seen who have Twitter links, and then you click on it and they haven't tweeted since 2020, which is totally fine. So I don't know how informative that is, but that's something that you could do. So I'm just gonna, I didn't really select anything, but so I'm just gonna click cancel. Yeah, so I can just then scroll down. Okay, so I've done my search. So now I'm going to scroll down, and some of the agents that are on my list are on there. So I'm going to scroll way down to show you agents who I have not queried, so you can kind of see the process of adding them. Okay, so I'm all the way further down on the page. And now these are agents I have not queried. I have not added them to my query list. I don't know anything about them, but they have somewhere listed on their preferred genres, the genre that I wrote for this book project, which is women's fiction. So in this case, I can take a quick look at some of them. Now I can see, oh, there's this big X sign under query methods. That means that this agent is closed to queries. But let's say I do my research on this agent and I think, yeah, but I think they'd be a great fit. I can still add them to my query list. So that way, when they are open to queries again, they show up and it's saved. So adding an agent to your query list is super easy. This checkbox right here, boom, added to my query list. And now you can see that the last activity has been updated with today's date. Now say I do my research or I say, you know what, they've been closed for a long time. I think they're just permanently closed to new authors because they have a full list of clients that they're busy with, or maybe they're thinking they might retire in a couple years. So they're like, no more new clients. So I am actually just going to click this again. And I'm just going to say, oh, remove from my query list. Okay. Now let's say, for example, that this agent was open to queries, but it was email only. So how do I mark that? This is actually where I would mark that. So instead of removing them, I would click again on that icon and I would say, yep, I sent an email query today, or I sent a snail mail query. I met them in person. This was a pitch contest that I sent this to them in. So anything like that. So I'm actually going to hit cancel. Oh, actually, I'm going to remove them from my list because I haven't done any research. I really don't like to add agents to my list if I haven't done the full research. So I'm going to do that. Yes, delete. Perfect. Okay, so that is easy, adding to project, removing from the project. Super helpful. Now I'm going to go back up to the top and I'm going to show you different ways to cut this data. So all of this data that I've shown you is available on the free version, I believe, but there's different information that's not. So what I'm going to show you here is the query data and then the submission data. So this has been really helpful in my strategy, especially with the first round of queries that I did, looking at the response rates, the response times for agents. So as you can see, all the data has changed. So the agent name and agency is still there. I can still see the query status if I've queried them through Query Manager, email, they've asked for the submission, closed no response, any of that. Obviously, I've queried that agent, so I've queried somebody at that agency. Agency name are still there. Methods for querying are still visible. But what it is now showing me is something a little different. So it's showing me the last query reply date. So the last time that they responded to a query. So this is the agent who currently has my full manuscript. I'm hoping to hear back from her. So the last time she responded to any query was today. So she's very good at responding. She has a high query response rate, which means that if you send her a query, there is a very high chance you will hear back from her. Yes, no, otherwise, which is good. Now, obviously, she receives a lot of queries. I think her high response rate is probably a reason for that. I also see her active on social media, talking about querying, answering author questions. So that's another reason why I think a lot of authors query her is, hey, you're helpful. Like, I learned a lot from you. I want to work with you, which is the reason why I queried her. And I was very pleasantly surprised that she asked for the full. Again, hopefully by the time you're seeing this, she's asked to work with me. That'd be great. So for all of the queries that she's received, though, there have been 32 times that she has said, yes, please send me the full, which is a low asking for a full rate, but she also receives a lot. Whereas this agent has a much higher rate, even though they just don't respond to they don't receive as many queries. Now, obviously, because she receives a lot, she can't say yes to everybody. There's a lot of sad faces. And so this number here says on average, within 25 days, you'll hear a positive response from this agent. So of all the times somebody has received a positive response, hey, please send me your full, that average time was 25 days. But if it was a pass, it was on average within 11 days. So that's actually really interesting to me because when I just look at her more detailed data, she's very quick to say pass, pass, pass. As you can see, she's going through her queries every day. But there's some people it takes longer to get back to if she's really thinking about it. So it is interesting to see that these are averages, but then when you look at some of the data, and again, we'll get to that with the Data Explorer and the query timeline, you'll see that sometimes these averages are truly just at an average of numbers that are all over the place. Sometimes it's very much the mean. So these numbers help and they're informative, but they're not always a hard and true, like at exactly 25 days, I will hear back. And if I hear back on day 11, then it must be a rejection. Like that's not the case. It's truly just an average. Okay, so that was this cut of data with the query data. And so I like to look at this when I'm deciding like, well, who am I going to prioritize in this round of queries? Like I want to hear back quickly to see if this iteration of my query letter and my sample pages is doing something, is getting me some kind of a response. So that's helpful in that regard. Now, again, just because they're good at responding still doesn't mean that they're the best agent for me. There was a few times I added agents to my list. I was like, oh, wow, they have a really high rate. And then when I looked closely at their data for like what they wanted to see when they were describing the kind of books they wanted to work with, I was like, well, this wouldn't be a fit. So even though I know I would get a response, I was like, it's probably gonna be a negative response because this isn't the right book for them. So it's kind of marrying this data with that practical, like doing the research, the qualitative and the quantitative. Okay, so next is submission. So within traditional publishing, when you have an agent and the two of you decide this book is ready to go to traditional publishers to pitch to them, that is called being on submission. Okay, you have submitted the book to these traditional publishers. Within QueryTracker, submission data is about when I, the author, submit the full requested manuscript to an agent. So it's a different context for the word submission. So this is showing, again, a different cut of data. Now, again, same things, query status, agent, agency. So again, going with the example of this agent who currently has my query, the last time she requested a full was on March 10th. That was my book. So I'm happy to see that she hasn't requested anymore. Like part of me is like, read my book, read my book, read my book. No, read my book. Don't worry about your clients and what they have to do. Read my book. So it's nice to see that she hasn't requested more new books, that she doesn't have this queue building up behind mine. So hopefully she's reading mine. Request rate. So again, only 1.5% of queries she receives does she actually request. Okay, so this is 31 submissions that were sent to her in the last 12 months of those that she's requested. Now 6 of those, she said, yes, this looks great, let's work together. So that makes me feel good. 15 of them, she said, nope, still not a good fit for me. So that's a little like, I don't want to be part of that group. But it's still helpful to know that percentage, that she is obviously being very, I don't want to say incredulous. She's being very discerning in who she signs on. Like, that's good. I don't want to work with an agent who just signs everybody and then doesn't have time for any of her clients. Like, I want to work with somebody who obviously is very discerning and is excited about the project. And I think that's indicative there. This is interesting. You can see for some of the other agents, they've requested quite a few. And again, that very discerning. This person, nobody. She's like, no, not for me, didn't work out. But maybe they already have a very full client list and it's very difficult to then that next bar to pass that bar and threshold. Okay, and again, this agent who currently has my full, on average, within 24 days, she will respond positively to a full submission. So I am within that time frame. And if it goes any longer, it's usually not a good sign. So that makes me nervous. And again, I'll show you within the more detailed data. I saw somewhere that it was like 19 days. So it's interesting now it's showing 24. Yeah, so these are really interesting cuts of data to see. And again, I have definitely replaced my meticulously checking Amazon, KDP, and Ingram Spark for my daily book sales, which I shouldn't have been doing anyways, with meticulously checking QueryTracker, which I shouldn't be doing anyways. What can I say? I like numbers and data, and it makes me feel more in control of the situation where I don't have a lot of control. Like, I've written the best book possible, I've put together the best query package possible, and now I have to wait. So I'm going to go back to the general view now. So I'm going to go down and look at that same agent that I've already told you about. Now, I want to show you 2 things. One is, I know I mentioned in another video, I could see that I was being skipped. My query was being skipped, and that informed me that maybe my query letter was good, but then maybe the sample pages weren't, if I was ultimately getting a rejection. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when you see that a query has been skipped, and then what it looks like when you're looking at some of the other data. So I'm actually going to go in. I know that this agent skipped me, so I'm going to go and look at their data explorer. Okay, now the data explorer is all on the bottom half, so you have to scroll down a bit. Now this is preset to the previous 30 days from the last search I did. So I'm going to expand it to 90 days because I submitted to them a while ago. Now, as you can see, some of these older queries, close no reply, close no reply, close no reply, full request, close no reply, reject, 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 reject. So you can see this person's query was skipped. So this person's probably just like, come on, Come on, look at mine. So I'm actually going to go find my query to this agent. There I am. Okay, so I can see here that this agent skipped me. Now, for a while, I was seeing that I was in the middle of this like queries that she looked at in mid-February, and I was waiting. And then the other day I saw that these two who were right before me that she had reviewed and passed on. So I'm kind of like anxiously waiting like any minute. I'm like, so maybe you're gonna look at mine next and you're gonna like it. So again, it feeds into that neuroticism, but that is where you can see, okay, I was skipped. So they liked something about this. So something about this caught their attention. Like, okay, I'm not gonna hit reject. Whereas I'm going through and rejecting others that maybe they can easily tell, like, that's not for me. Like they shouldn't have queried me anyways. Like that's not part of my selected genres, or quickly like, maybe they didn't format it correctly. Maybe they made some of those other querying faux pas, whatever reason. So they're going through rejecting and they're keeping some open. So I'm hoping I'm on their maybe pile and they're going to go back and look through their maybe pile. So that was what I was referring to in other videos. So now I'm going to go back to the agent who I'm actively waiting on. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the agent that I'm currently waiting on. Going to give her some love, even though you're not going to see her name. And so I'm actually going to show you the profile page and what you can see on the profile page. And then I'll go into the query timeline. So you can access both the Data Explorer and the query timeline from this quick view on this My Query list or the search list. And you can also access it from the agent's profile page. So you can see this here. I'm going to click on the agent's name that you can't see. And then you can actually see those same two things over here. The same symbols are right here. So in this case, for this agent, I get some quick stats up here. Now, I believe I can only see this under the premium. You may be able to see it elsewhere. But this just gives a quick review of their reply rate, request rate, submission reply rate, last reply, last request. That was me. And average request time, average reject time. So it's all really quickly in there that I can just review. And then I can also tab over. So there's the main view, which I'll scroll in a second, comments, which I mentioned before. And I scroll down. I can just say, yep, this was when I sent the form query, forward to another agent, passing out for another agent. So she's apparently very good at sending things to other agents in the agency of saying, this isn't for me, it might be for somebody else. And she gets a lot of queries, so that's not surprising that she would have more cause to do that. Okay, then I can look at reports. So the reports are really interesting. So I can see all time, last 12 months, last 6 months, last 9 days, last 30 days. I like to look at these different cuts of data because maybe this agent has been in here for a while and maybe some of the wait times are really long because they kind of took a hiatus on reviewing the queries. So maybe it was during a holiday season, maybe they were just really busy with their current clients. So some of the data can be skewed depending on what you're looking at. And so sometimes it's nice to see, hey, in the last 30 days, well, how many are they responding to? In the last 90 days and all time, what are they responding to? So you can kind of get that more up-to-date data. So when you look further down, you can see partial requests, full requests, rejections, closed no reply. So there's very few that have been left to that. And I can also change the data I'm looking at. So this is just for queries. So I can go up here and I can say, well, I want to see submission replies. That's interesting. You can break it down by fiction and nonfiction, word count, query rejections, response times. I'm obviously interested in submission replies because she has my submission. That's interesting where there was at least one person who was asked to do a revise and resubmit. So I can see all of that. I can see the submission response times. So scrolling down a little bit more, I can see how many were positive, how long it took to get those positive ones. Now it looks like obviously all time she switched at some point from doing email to Query Manager. So that information's on there. Now the top here is partial requests. Down here is full request. So that's obviously what I'm most interested in because she asked for my full request. So I can see her average response time to full requests on Query Manager when it's positive. Again, I'm assuming positive. I'm assuming this is going to work out. It's 31 days, slowest. So that kind of gives me an idea how quickly I might hope to hear from her. And again, this is all within the premium. Everything with the star next to it is all premium reports. Being able to see agents with similar tastes, super helpful. And then I can even say down to women's fiction. There's one other agent who meets both. So that's a very interesting cut of data. And then reply history. So that's just another way to cut the data. So I love reports. I love data. I'm a data person. So it's almost too much data. I get a little antsy. Okay, so back from this top menu here, I can look at their genres. Now, obviously, I can see she represents a lot of genres. She has a wide range. And looking at the books that she represents, that makes sense. Obviously, young adult has a lot of sub-genres listed. So that's why they're showing so many. That was one of the new feature updates within QueryTracker within the last couple months, was that you can now say not just young adult, but like young adult science fiction, young adult historical, young adult fan, like all of it's in there. The next one is known clients that are added. And then I could save a copy of the query letter. This is interesting. I guess if I want to just save it and remember it, I have all my files elsewhere. So, but that's if I didn't have files elsewhere, I could do that. Okay, so now I'm finally going to go back to the main, which I told you I'd get to. This is the main information for this agent. So it gives me their name, their agency, the location of the agency, which is interesting because I believe this agency actually has offices across the country, and some of the agents work remote. Has the website for the agency, the Twitter account for the agent. I can just go straight to the form and submit if I had not already submitted, and just places to find this agent. And what's nice is if it clicks through, it takes me directly to the page that I need on each of these. So that's really helpful. So that's what you see on the main page. Now I'm going to go back up to the top so I can show you the Data Explorer. So the Data Explorer we've already looked at once for another agent, but I'm just going to click here so you can see this as well. Again, I can look by genre. So let's see, I want to see how she's responding to other people in my genre over the last 90 days. So I can see women's fiction. I can see any word count, any delivery method, previous 90 days. Okay, reply. Let's see, I want to see how many others she's done a full request for. Me and someone else. And the reply date. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay. Any explicit reply. So all of the people who were skipped are gone. Okay. So that's, again, that's interesting. I always love to cut data different ways. All right, now I'm going to go back to her main profile page and then show you the query time. All right, we're back to the main page. So again, I'm going to click query timeline. Okay. So in this case, this is showing me all the partial or full requests. Now I could just look at all of the, in the past 6 months. Let's look at the past 90 days, a little bit easier. I can look again, any genre, word count, delivery method, query reply. So let's just say any explicit reply. Okay. Okay. So now I can see again, she's very consistent in responding. Okay, this person, okay, yay, send me the full. That person sent the full. They're still waiting to hear back. I can see with the little clippy. This person, okay, send me the full, sent the full. They got an offer of representation. Can't wait to do my own purple smiley face. Okay, and then when I just looked at the full or partials, that's when mine popped up. So I'm able to say, yep, that person's still waiting. That person got an offer. I'm still waiting. This person got an offer or said no. So I'm just still waiting. Just waiting. So those are the things that I really wanted to show you within QueryTracker. Let me go back to the main page. Okay, so this is what I really wanted to show you guys within QueryTracker, how I'm making use of it, how I'm using this to inform my decisions of when to query a specific agent, how I'm using it to research agents, how I'm using it to feed my neurotic data nerdness and hoping I'm getting some insights from maybe this is going to work, maybe this isn't going to work. So what questions do you have about QueryTracker? Are you using QueryTracker? Is there something you're using that I'm not using? Definitely let me know. Okay, and that's QueryTracker. As you can see, I'm a total data nerd and I really love geeking out on some of the information that I can see and using that to just better inform, well, what's that next query I'm going to send? What's going on? Should I wait a bit longer? Should I not? So it's really helpful and it makes me feel like I have a bit more control in a situation where I kind of don't have control, but it makes me feel that way. And so I like it. So if you have any questions, if you're thinking about upgrading from the standard to the premium, let me know. If there's anything I'm missing out on this product, like please let me know in the comments below. And we can keep encouraging each other too through the querying trenches. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and maybe even hit that thanks button. That tells YouTube that you got value from this information, and then they can put it in front of other authors like us. Now you can go back to writing your book.